I flunked the college entrance exam, and my dad kicked me out of the house and brought his illegitimate son, Ethan, in. He showed him off to everyone. My son is smart, way better than my daughter. 8 years later, I graduated with a master's degree in medicine and landed a job at a prestigious hospital in the city. His son also made him proud by getting into a well-known university. They went out to celebrate, had a car accident, and ended up in our hospital. As they were brought in by an ambulance, just as I finished checking on patients and was about to clock out, my phone rang. Seriously? I thought, seeing the hospital's front desk calling. I assumed they had a patient asking for me, but instead it was an urgent inquiry. Hello, are you a relative of Matt? Hadn't heard my dad's name in 8 years. I paused. Yes, what's up? Matt was in a car accident and was brought to the central hospital. Could you come quickly? Of all places to reunite with my dad after all these years, I didn't expect it would be here. I hung up, felt a bit conflicted, took off my lab coat, changed into my own clothes, and headed to the front desk. Where's Matt? A young nurse saw me and was stunned. Dr. Emma, how do you know? He has the same last name, could it? I nodded. Yeah, I'm Matt's family. The nurse's expression turned complicated as she led me to the ER. Among the three of them, my dad had the lightest injuries, just a broken arm, yelling in pain on a hospital bed. I approached, and the doctor treating him barked gruffly, "We're in the middle of saving him, step aside." Then he saw my face. His tone softened immediately. "You're still here? Haven't clocked out yet?" In his blood-stained view, my dad caught sight of me. Surprisingly, his pain seemed to lessen. He stared wide-eyed. "Emma?" Calmly, I stated the obvious. The hospital called the family to come. As my colleague cleaned his wound, he started crying out again, voice all shaky. "Help me check on your brother. Is he okay?" Before I could answer, my colleague standing nearby filled him in. "The boy that came in with you took a hard hit to the head. He's in a coma. The woman with you has a spinal fracture. She's already prepped for surgery." The look my coworker gave me was uncertain, probably unsure if he should pity me or not. I shrugged off his concern. "My mom's his ex-wife. The one in surgery is his current wife." Turning to my dad, I said, "Don't worry too much. Trust the doctors. They'll do everything they can for you all. Let me go pay the fees for the three of you." His pained expression showed a touch of surprise mixed with affection. But once I unlocked his phone with his one good hand, that hint of gratitude vanished. I couldn't help but find it amusing. What was he expecting? Not like 8 years ago, when he didn't spare a dime for my upbringing. And now he thinks I'd front the medical bills for his whole family? Even though I'm a doctor, and should be compassionate, I can't shake off the thought of the past. Karma really does exist. 8 years back, when I didn't make the cut for a prestigious college, I was already feeling pretty down about it. But once my dad found out, he stormed home, getting into a massive argument with my mom, blaming her for my failure. "After all those years of education, you got such lousy grades, and I can't hold my head up around others anymore. I've been busting my gut working, and this is how you repay me? Wife's not virtuous, daughter's ungrateful. I've had it. Divorce. I've had enough." I'd never seen my dad so hysterical before. It scared me into hiding in my room crying. I blamed myself for not achieving a score that could make him proud. I felt so guilty that I bit my arm hard enough to leave a mark. I cried myself to sleep that night, and when I woke up, it was already noon. Dad must have been out at work again, because it was just Mom in the living room when I got up. She looked at me with swollen, guilt-ridden eyes. "Emma, pack your things. We're moving out." I was frozen, not quite processing what she said. She walked over and hugged me. "I'm sorry I've divorced your dad." That day, I became the child of a broken family. I obediently packed up and moved out of the only home I'd known for 18 years with my mom. But I held on to a glimmer of hope that if I repeated a year and got great scores, maybe Dad would be so happy he'd reconcile with Mom, and we'd be a family again. It wasn't even a day after we moved when the neighbor's sister angrily called me. "Emma, your dad's too much. You barely moved out, and he's already brought a woman and her kid home. That boy's been around since elementary school. He must have been cheating for ages. And he blames the divorce on you not doing well? What a jerk." After the call ended, My heart felt like it was being stabbed, tears streaming down my face. Just as I was overflowing with emotions, Mom came in to call me for dinner. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she broke down, hugging me tight. "Emma, it's my fault. I couldn't even give you a complete family. If only I could please your dad more, maybe this wouldn't have happened." "Please him more? How's that? Should she have another kid for him?" Truth is, she tried everything she could. In my hazy childhood memories, they'd try all kinds of weird remedies. Once, they even drank charm-infused water. Back then, I didn't know why they were doing all that. As I got older, I realized it was all for having a son. Mom said having a little brother would mean someone to lean on if I got married, and ran into trouble with the in-laws. So I was really looking forward to having a brother. But a checkup at the hospital showed Mom had some complication, becoming less likely to conceive. I guess from that point on, Dad worked longer hours, yet brought home less money. On the day I realized why, everything fell into place. The money had been going to him and his other family. So, it was my dad who cheated. But why did my mom take the blame? "Mom, you did nothing wrong, neither did I." The only person who didn't want this family was my dad from the start. Even if I got into a prestigious college, a divorce would still happen. Once I realized this, my mom and I quickly got over the feeling of being abandoned. But our lives didn't get better just because our mindset improved. My mom became a housewife after getting married, being out of touch with society for almost 20 years. She didn't have any particular skills, and found it tough to get an easy, but well-paying job after the divorce. She had to work at a hospital, caring for patients in less glamorous ways. To lessen my mom's financial burdens, I swallowed my pride and went home to ask my dad for support. He got mad and slammed the table as soon as he heard my request. Pointing at me, he said, "You're 18 and adult now. Why would you need child support when you're perfectly healthy and capable?" His girlfriend Kate overheard and came out to join the conversation. She took advantage of the fact that I wasn't familiar with the law, claiming that even if I took it to court, the court wouldn't rule in my favor. Worse, I'd have to pay hefty legal fees, adding to my mom's burden. She managed to scare me a bit, but I didn't want to leave empty-handed. I asked my dad, "If you can't provide child support, can you at least cover half of my prep school fees?" As soon as I said it, Kate let out a mocking laugh. "Emma, I've heard from your dad that you're doing awful in school. How dare you think of repeating the year? If you care about your mom, you should start working and earning money soon. You should work at the hospital too, alongside your mom, and help carry and clean up after patients." Mocking me was one thing, but she went after my mom too. I don't know where I got the courage from, but I slapped her across the face. Immediately my dad kicked me, knocking me to the ground. "How dare you act crazy in this house? She's your mother too. You dare hit her?" I yelled back from the floor. "She's not my mom. She's just a homewrecker." My dad gave me another kick, cursing, "You filthy brat. Who taught you such nasty words? Is it your mom?" My mom had been wronged by him, but never bad-mouthed him in front of me after the divorce. What right did he have to pin this on her? I got up, grabbed a cup from the coffee table, and splashed it right into his face. "You don't get to talk about my mom." I knew what would happen next, but luckily, my neighbor's daughter had been waiting outside, and ran to get help from an adult. With bruised legs, I went home and ran straight into my mom's arms. "Mom, I promise I'll study hard, get into a great college, and find a great job. I'll make so much money that our lives will be 10 times better than theirs." That night, after seeing my injuries, I heard my mom curse my dad for the first time. She wanted to confront him, but I stopped her. The next day, the real estate agent visited. To scrape together my prep school tuition, my mom had stayed up all night and decided to sell our house. Our old, rundown 30 square meter place only sold for 20 grand, and she walked away with less than half of that. With that money, my mom paid my prep school tuition. A year later, my college entrance exam results came out. I ranked 65th in the province. I eagerly ran to the hospital to share the news with my mom, who was working the night shift as a caregiver. But when I got to the ward, she wasn't there. I saw 2 nurses rushing into the women's restroom, and a terrible feeling hit me, so I followed. Sure enough, I found my mom fainted inside, The exhaustion from working day and night without proper rest finally got to her. Because of this incident, they discovered a tumor in her lung. Thankfully, due to this fainting episode, the tumor was removed before it could worsen. The doctor assured me, "Don't worry, we caught it early. As long as she takes it easy, it shouldn't come back." With my eyes full of tears, I bowed to the doctor in gratitude. He saved my mom. I'd never felt such admiration for anyone before, and it made me decide to apply to med school. My mom fully supported me, but she was worried. Over the past year, to save a little money, she had stopped paying for her health insurance. Who would have thought we'd end up needing surgery, which ended up costing all the money we had saved, including my college tuition? She was upset, saying, "I'm so foolish. I tried to save a tiny amount and ended up spending so much more. I used up all your college savings." I was a bit disheartened, but my mom's health was more important than money. "Mom, don't worry about it. Just focus on getting better. I don't have anyone else. You can't have anything happen to you." The patient in the next bed overheard and asked, "What about your dad? Isn't he around?" I looked at my mom and nodded toward that person. "No, it's just my mom. My dad now only belonged to Kate and their son." But according to our neighbor's daughter, Kate's son was doing quite well. All that money my dad spent on hiring top-notch tutors paid off. After elementary school, he got into a prestigious bilingual private school in our city, topping it with his foreign language skills. Tuition there nearly costs 10 grand a year. That's more than my total undergrad and grad school tuition. My mom heard about this too, and suggested I inform my dad about my acceptance into a renowned med school. Maybe if he felt happy, he'd help with my tuition fees. Of course, I wouldn't approach him. To me, he might as well be dead. "Mom, don't worry about my tuition. The government offers student loans. I'll get one, and pay it off once I start making money." My student loan application got approved quickly, and by the end of August that year, I was finally a college student. After 8 years of hard work, my scholarships, holiday jobs, and paper fees not only helped me pay off my student loans, but also allowed me to save up a small amount. Under my mom's name, I made a down payment on a small apartment. My mom stopped working as a caregiver at the hospital after she got better. One of the elderly ladies she used to care for didn't need hospital care anymore, but needed help with day-to-day stuff. She liked my mom, so she offered her a job with a monthly salary of $6,800 and asked her to move in. This lady wasn't your usual boss who'd work you to the bone just because she's paying. My mom only had to cook, do the laundry, and hang out watching TV. It wasn't too bad. The lady liked me too. She was the first person besides my mom to say I was smart. She even thought about setting me up with her grandson who was studying abroad. But honestly, thanks to my dad, I have no faith in relationships or marriage. 8 years have gone by, and my dad hasn't reached out, no matter what I achieve. I feel like in his eyes I never existed. All he cares about is his son. I heard he spent all his money on this son of his. Never mind about himself or Kate, just as long as his precious son was taken care of. I admit, there was a time I wished his son wouldn't get into college after all that effort. But I gotta hand it to him, that kid impressed me. First try at college entrance exams, and he scored almost as high as I did after I repeated a year. He got into a top school easily. Bet my dad was thrilled, showing him off to everyone, saying boys are naturally brighter than girls. But really, does it even matter? Such a smart son. But who knows if he's really his? I saw something interesting in the hospital database. My dad's blood type is O, and Kate's is A. If two people with O and A blood types have kids, they could be either O or A blood type, but not B or AB type. My dad's precious son? He's AB. So, he's been raising someone else's kid while ignoring his actual daughter. "Emma, how's everything going? Awake yet?" My dad would pull me aside during daily rounds for updates. But I never told him Ethan wasn't his biological son. Not because I feared he'd be heartbroken, but because I felt it needed more responsibility. I should uncover the whole truth before dropping a bomb like that. Not awake yet, but everything in the surgery went smoothly, so don't worry. What about his mental state? Will he have any issues? It's unlikely. He may have some initial problems, but those should clear up given some time. He should be ready for college next year. Hearing that, my dad relaxed, muttering to himself. Glad we finally have a son, he started, then caught himself looking embarrassed. Guess I should say finally 2 college students. Emma, I didn't expect you to be such a late bloomer. I chuckled, told him to rest, and left. Honestly, I didn't want to be a late bloomer. If he'd invested in me as a kid, I probably wouldn't have needed to retake classes. Leaving his room, I visited Kate. Kate was lucky. With severe spinal fractures, she survived. The best surgeon in our hospital helped her avoid paralysis. But surviving doesn't mean she'll be back to normal. She will face challenges and require support in daily life within the decade. Hey, Dr. Emma's making rounds. An elderly lady next to Kate greeted me, waking up Kate. As soon as she saw me, she looked guilty. How are you, Kate? Just here with some good news about Ethan. His surgery was successful. He'll be out of the ICU soon, easing your financial burden. I know my dad can't help you right now, but you should consider hiring a nurse. For hygiene reasons. I glanced downwards, and she grasped my point, her face turning ashen. I'm filing a complaint. You're humiliating a patient. The lady defended me. How is she humiliating you? She's just suggesting a nurse. With a spiteful look at both of us, Kate snapped. Oh, then I'll hire your mom for the job. I smiled and explained, sorry, my mom doesn't do that anymore. She settled down in New York with Jack, running a B&B. Jack was the nephew of the elderly lady who hired Mom. When matchmaking for me didn't work out, she introduced my mom to her widowed nephew. Jack isn't as tall as my dad, but he's a good man, not hung up over having a son. His first wife passed when he was in his 30s, and for his daughters, he stayed single for over 20 years. His daughters encouraged him to remarry so he could enjoy life again. That's how he met Mom. These ladies treated us well, and 2 years ago, they organized a big wedding for Mom and Jack. I should thank you. Without you, my mom wouldn't be living such a nice life right now. So if you need anything, just let me know. Even if it's finding Ethan's biological dad. Hearing that, Kate's face turned from pale to purple in an instant. Work at the hospital is busy, so I don't really have time to look into Ethan's background. But my old neighbor's little sister has plenty of free time. We've stayed in touch over the years. She married a rich guy and became a mom early on. Whenever her kid gets a sniffle or a headache, I'm the one they call to help out. So when I asked for their help, she and her husband jumped right in. And they quickly found out everything about Kate and Ethan's backgrounds. Kate came here as a migrant worker. Before coming to this city, she stayed in another place for 3 years. What kind of business she was in? You can easily tell by her methods of seducing men. Having had over a dozen abortions in 3 years, she lost her ability to have kids long ago. Ethan was a baby she got from one of her old friends. His real father is unknown, but Ethan does seem to have a connection to my dad. Even though his birth father is a mystery, he looks a lot like my dad did as a kid. No wonder my dad never suspected anything. When my dad got together with Kate, he always talked about wanting a son. Kate got tired of her life and wanted stability. So when she heard one of her friends got pregnant and wanted an abortion, she came up with the idea. She faked a pregnancy while my dad was busy with work and traveling. When my grandma passed during Kate's pregnancy, my dad was busy with family affairs and didn't notice anything. In the end, he got both the land and a son he had dreamed about. One night when I was on duty, I found Kate alone in the ward. I sat beside her and laid out everything I'd discovered. At first she denied it, but when I mentioned a paternity test, she crumbled. Unable to move because of her condition, she looked at me teary-eyed. Emma, I was wrong. I'm begging you, please don't tell your dad. Your dad really wanted a son to carry on the family name. He'd be heartbroken. He's invested so much in that kid, you know. It's everything to him now. If you tell him, it'll break his heart. You're his daughter. You can't be so ungrateful. And you're a doctor. You can't push a good man to ruin. Hearing her speech, I almost applauded. She was spot on. I am a daughter, and a doctor, so I should preserve their family's happiness. Under her hopeful gaze, I stayed silent for a while before nodding. All right, I won't tell my dad. Let's wait another year. After all his hard work raising Ethan, he deserves the joy of having a son. It's the least I can do to respect him. Time flies, and the year quickly passed by. My dad's ready-to-go son finally headed to school. He chose law and aimed to become a prosecutor. My dad was so confident in him and boasted to everyone he met. My son's gonna be a prosecutor. And my daughter's a doctor at a top hospital. Being dragged into this bragging felt a bit awkward. Since the year was up, it was time to give him the gift I planned. On his birthday, as a successful doctor, I was invited to the restaurant. There I mingled with long-lost uncles and aunts, eager for free consultations. They seemed to forget how they shunned my mom and refused to help pay for my education. Ethan was fashionably late, showing up with a girl. He's grown out of looking like my dad. Now he looks like his mom, charm and all, attracting lots of girls. Halfway through dinner, I went to the restroom and overheard Ethan arguing with his girlfriend in the hallway. She was upset. You never mentioned having a sister. And your mom wasn't even his first wife. Ethan, what else are you hiding from me? I like you, but my family can't accept all this. You can stay here and finish dinner, but I'm leaving. Don't contact me again. I heard my dad telling the table that the girl came from a well-off family, with high-ranking parents. No surprise there. Families like that wouldn't accept a kid from Kate's past. No wait, saying he was Kate's son is too simple. He's the son of a fallen woman. The girl stormed off. Just as Ethan got up to chase her, he saw me standing there. We never had direct confrontations, just awkward run-ins. Yet in that moment, he looked at me like an enemy. Why did you have to come today? I smirked. Would staying away make your family any happier? And I'm not just here by myself. I invited your biological mother too. Ethan paused. What do you mean? I tracked down Ethan's real mom right after she got out of prison. She'd been in for a long time for soliciting and influencing others to do the same. With no place to go, she remembered her son and her reformed friend. They lost contact, so she had no way to reach them. Good thing I was there. I told her son was well taken care of by my dad, who gave everything to make him a top student. She felt proud and excited. Eventually, she called me and asked to see her son. Your real mom is next door. Do you want to go alone, or should I go with you? Ethan turned down my offer, opting to go alone. Back in my dad's room, I continued enjoying the birthday dinner for him that I had organized. He truly loves his son. He started worrying after just 5 minutes, and was about to go look for him. Just as he was about to get up, a painful cry from Ethan erupted from the next room. My dad, filled with paternal energy, immediately shouted his son's name and rushed out. Uncles, aunts, and cousins followed worriedly, leaving just me and Kate, who couldn't move easily at the table. She looked at me pale-faced, as if she already knew this was all orchestrated by me. I finished the last bite of my meal, and slowly walked over to her. Aunt, let me wheel you over. Seeing your biological and adoptive moms together is quite a scene. Ethan's biological mother showing up signified not only that my dad would lose his son, but also the unraveling of lies, be it the 9-month pregnancy, or the fallen woman pretending to be a factory sister. Emma, you're wicked, she accused. I've put up with you for a whole year. Why can't you just let it go? Her accusation made me want to laugh. Why should I let it go? Are we even that close? Besides, stop calling me Emma. My name change request is in process. From now on, it's Emily. That birthday party, I thought I had everything under control. Unexpectedly, in the room next door, some online media people caught everything. Overnight, my dad's family went viral on that app. I originally just wanted to embarrass my dad in front of relatives, not expecting it to make headlines that Matt abandoned his wife and daughter after raising a son who wasn't his. Serves him right. Favoring boys over girls. His wife stuck with him through thick and thin, and just because she couldn't have a son, she was cast aside. Kate is guilty, but the child is somewhat innocent. His real mom's a prostitute, his real dad's a John. And his mom also lured decent women into prostitution, leading to a long prison sentence. Isn't this kid studying law, aiming to be a prosecutor? With a mom like that, can he even pass a background check? I doubt it. Not only was his biological mom one, but his adoptive mom was too. So you see, Matt deserves this. Ignoring a good wife and daughter to raise another's child with a prostitute. The harsh words about my dad lingered online and offline for a long time. That Matt, who who used to flaunt his son's achievements in the neighborhood, had all but disappeared. "Dr. Emma, how's my recovery? Do I need more treatment?" An old neighbor came to consult me for a checkup. I reassured him no need, you're all good. He thanked me, almost like a thank you gift. He updated me on my dad. Since that birthday party, he'd been too mad to contact me. I saw no need to meet either, so naturally, I didn't reach out. The neighbor said my dad sued Kate, and their divorce was being processed. He couldn't stay in his current neighborhood, and was selling his house through an agent. Kate likely skimmed a lot over the years, and didn't fight too much during the divorce. She went back to her rural hometown with her family. Ethan, shocked by the truth of his parentage, disavowed by both biological and adoptive mothers, intended to be there for my dad's old age. But Dad couldn't stand the constant reminder of his shame and cut ties. With his dreams of being a prosecutor shattered and his father turning cold, Ethan seemed to have given up, quitting school, and took up a monk's robe, setting off on a journey. This year, since I had to be on duty for New Year's, my mom, Jack, my 2 sisters, brothers-in-law, and their kids came over to celebrate with me. On New Year's Eve, in the heavy snow, I brought heaps of fireworks for my niece and nephew on my way back from work. My mom and sisters were making dumplings upstairs, while Jack and my brothers-in-law helped the kids set off fireworks downstairs. Although they aren't my biological sisters, they've never compared or competed with me. They never minded if I got to play while they cooked. From the start, they treated me like a child in need of love. Just before heading downstairs, Jack, my sisters, and brothers-in-law gave out red envelopes to the kids, and also handed me one. Jack treats my mom as if she were a child too, pampering her so much that her red envelope was the biggest and thickest. I was really thankful to them for giving me such a happy family after all these years. Because of Jack and my brothers-in-law, I started to have the idea of love, marriage, and creating my own family. Auntie, my niece, tugged at my arm, a little scared, whispering by the car shed, "There seems to be someone watching us." I looked where she pointed, and saw a tall yet slightly hunched figure in the dim corner. Jack and the others noticed too, and became alert. "A thief or one of your disgruntled patient's family members. Do you need to call the cops?" I kept staring at that familiar figure, and shook my head. It was Matt. Jack caught on quickly and advised, "Don't let your mom know if you head back." I shifted my gaze away from my dad and laughed, asking Jack, afraid Mom might forgive and rekindle something with him? Jack scoffed, "I trust your mom's judgment now. I just don't want her to be bothered by it." Just in case, I asked Jack and Mom to fly back to New York. Work kept me busy for a while, and I usually stayed in the hospital dorm, so I didn't know if Dad ever tried reaching out to me again. Before I knew it, spring came around. During the Fate Festival holiday, a really good movie came out. A colleague invited me to see it with him, and when I got to the theater, I realized I was the only one he invited. He was even holding a bouquet of some small unknown flowers. I didn't know much about him, but he knew everything I liked. A few months later, he gave me the same little bouquet again. "Emily, even though we haven't been dating long, we've known each other for like 8 years. So can I ask you something bold? Would you like to keep dating until we're old and gray?" Even though we hadn't been together long, before we became colleagues, we were just alumni from the same school but different majors. I belatedly found out that the flowers he gave me were called marguerites. Their meaning? Secret love. Turns out, when I doubted myself, thinking I wasn't good enough, someone in the crowd was seeing me, quietly paying attention. The next spring I got married. We had a simple wedding, only inviting close relatives and friends. My dad wasn't one of them, but due to our special work circumstances, halfway through our wedding feast, the hospital called us back. An emergency surgery was needed for a patient brought in by the police. A new intern, looking quite angry, filled me in on the patient. It was really tragic. She had been abused by her family for a long time, lost most of her hair and teeth. And the worst part, she used to be able to walk with crutches, but due to improper care, she got a spinal injury and became paralyzed. Her lower body wasn't being taken care of, and it was a mess. Not to mention, even though she had no feeling in her legs, someone heartlessly stuck a bunch of steel needles in her withered legs. Hearing this horrified me. I asked, Is she a woman rescued from human trafficking? No, the intern replied. She was brought here by her family from another place, looking for her ex-husband. My husband had already put on his surgical scrubs and gone in. But a few seconds later he came back out looking shocked. Emma, he said, when you see this patient, don't be surprised. With those words, I had a feeling I knew who it was. When I saw her again, her eyes no longer held fear or hatred towards me. She had lost her mind. Her eyes were empty, unfocused even before the anesthesia kicked in. After about an hour of surgery, we removed 18 steel needles and some homemade shotgun pellets from her leg. Later, the police interviewed her, and I learned she took over $20,000 when she left my dad. Her family didn't want to take her in. They thought she was an embarrassment. But her 20-something younger brother needed money to get married. In rural areas, the bride price is even higher than in cities, so her mom snatched up all her money. Afraid they'd kick her out once they knew she was broke, she lied about having private savings. When they couldn't get any, they locked her in an abandoned courtyard. Her nephew, the younger brother's son, had a twisted personality. When he got upset at school, he'd take it out on her in the courtyard. Those steel needles and shotgun pellets were his doing. Eventually, the older brother's son was also getting married. The courtyard was to be renovated, and she was seen as nothing more than trash to be disposed of. Her family decided to send her back to my father. But he had moved, and the old apartment complex couldn't reach him, so they called the police. After the interview, I stayed by her hospital bed. Something about the situation must have jogged her memory, because her eyes cleared a bit. Is it Emma? Could you help me find your dad? I had ended all my business with her. Now we were just patient and doctor. My name is Emily, I corrected. And honestly, I haven't seen Matt in a long time. Since that New Year's, I really hadn't seen my dad again. But blood connections are funny things. Like when I suddenly craved something and my mom, all the way in New York, would ship it to me without me asking. So when I found out I was pregnant and went for a checkup at the OBGYN, I unexpectedly ran into my long-lost father right there in the hallway. He was being scolded by a woman about 30 years old. She didn't seem local and didn't look unreasonable. Her eyes held a look of triumph. Matt, you're the problem. You call me a hen that can't lay eggs? Ridiculous. Look at your test results. Your sperm's viability is 0. You can't have kids. And you kept pushing me to give you a son? Please, let's get a divorce. Just look at yourself. You won't be having a son. Heck, you can't even have any eggs. Why should I stay with you? Wait till you're old and can't move, and expect me to take care of you? Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at City Hall for divorce papers. If you don't show, I'll have my friends block your door, and make sure everyone knows you can't father kids. Don't you dare blame me then. Turns out, during his disappearance, Dad got remarried, and was desperately trying to have a legitimate son to carry on the family name. Watching from the end of the corridor, I planned to leave without saying anything. Turning to my husband, let's go. We can come back for the checkup tomorrow. My voice wasn't loud, but somehow Dad heard. He dashed to me like he was running a 100-meter sprint, grabbing my wrist tightly. Emma, come with me for a DNA test. Finding out he was infertile, he now doubted my lineage. Not wanting my mom to have a bad name, I agreed. A few days later, we got the results. It confirmed I was indeed his biological child. He probably consumed weird remedies after I was born while trying to have a son, which led to his infertility and also harmed my mom's health. But finally, having a biological child, even if it wasn't a son, my dad was so happy he cried his eyes out. Emma, you're my daughter. Change your name back. Your last name is Chun, and you need to be on the Chun family tree. My husband, overhearing, couldn't help but chuckle. What era are we in, still talking about family trees? I've always wanted to ask Uncle, do you have a throne or something? And that's why you want a son to inherit it? My dad, caught off guard, couldn't start his lecture and asked back, don't you want a son? My husband shook his head. Sons are too mischievous, I don't like that. Both Emma and I want a girl. My dad, frustrated, said you're too young. When you get older, you'll see the benefits of having a son. My husband smirked, you're the one stuck in the past. You've messed up good things and still haven't learned. I think your life's been a waste. Please don't bother Emily anymore. Even though I'm well educated, if someone keeps bothering my wife, I'm not afraid to use force. After I got pregnant, he had energy to burn and started hitting the gym. All that weightlifting paid off. He looks a lot stronger now and quite intimidating. So, despite my dad's reluctant expression, after eyeing my husband's physique, he kept his mouth shut. As I turned to leave, my dad yelled one last thing. "Emma, you're my child. It's a fact." I got in the car, rolled down the window. The past grievances and anger had long been resolved. Let me say it again. My name is Emily now. I will keep learning and working hard, but any achievements are a tribute to my mom's family. None of it concerns you, Matt.